Welcome. We're going to work through this practice SAC before us. And what makes this an interesting practice SAC is that it's open-ended. And a part of your SAC that you'll be actually sitting is going to be an open-ended task. So it's really important that you know how to go about it, because normally these open-ended tasks people find a little bit confusing. So make sure you watch this fully and you ask me any questions if at any point you become confused. All right, let's just give it a read through and I'll explain a bit more what you're actually going to encounter in your real SAC, because this is going to prepare us really well for that. Okay, so it's about GDP versus life expectancy. Here it says, it has been suggested that people living in high wealth countries tend to live longer. Is this contention supported by the data? Perform a full regression analysis and explain the relationship between gross domestic product and life expectancy. For the purpose of this task, assume that GDP is the explanatory variable and life expectancy is the response variable. And as you can see, you're just been given a whole bunch of data. There it is, a whole bunch of data here. Now, in your actual SAC, this is all you're going to be given. You'll be told a bit of background like you're told here, and then you'll be told to perform a full regression analysis and explain whether or not there actually is a relationship between two things. So in this case, it's GDP and life expectancy. In your actual SAC, it will be something else. But all you're told is that you need to perform a full regression analysis and explain the relationship. That's it. You're also given a rubric. And as you can see here, this is the actual rubric that we'll be using. I'll talk about how your one will be slightly different. But the rubric says, use the rubric given to help you perform this investigation. All working out must be shown in the ruled paper provided and must be clearly labeled. So you can get a sense of what your open-ended SAC is going to look like. You're going to be given a whole bunch of paper and you're going to perform your own calculations and then write up this report about whether or not there is a relationship between these two variables. So look through this criterion here. Make sure you give it a really good read through. So describe key features of the data, use the correct expressions when describing the data and summary statistics, construct a residual analysis on technology to test the assumption of linearity and interpret the plot of the given context. In the case of non-linear, perform accurate transformation to the data to achieve linearity and repeat the modeling process using the transformed data. Analyze results from a dataset and interpret the results and report the results of statistical investigation. And finally, distinguish between correlation and causation and generate possible inferences from analysis of datasets to draw conclusions related to the given context. So you can see how this would help structure what you're doing. So the rubric would help structure your report here, and we'll talk more about how you'd structure it as well. Make sure you just give all of this a read through as well. Now, the one extra thing that your SAC will include for the rubric is we're also going to assess the quality of your writing, which means we want coherent full sentences and paragraphs. We want you to write out fully what you're saying, and we are going to judge you by the quality of your writing. We're not expecting you to be Shakespeare here. We just want coherent sentences, no grunting. Okay, so the rubric is very important. Now, if we come over here, because this is a practice SAC, we have provided something to you just to help you break it down a bit more. And that is these questions. Now, this here will not be included in your SAC. So in your actual SAC, these questions will not be provided to you. These questions, because this is a practice SAC, is just going to help us figure out what we're doing, give us some structure. As you read them through, you'll notice that these are very similar to what the rubric told us. So for instance, look at the scatter plot and describe it and explain any implications. Look at the residual plot and describe and explain any implications. If the data is nonlinear, test all transformations and select the best one to transform the data. So all this is very much reminiscent of what we read through in the rubric, but it's just giving you very clear instructions on how to go about this report. Now, at this moment, hopefully a light bulb is going off in your head, okay? This information here is how you should structure your report, but we're not going to provide you with this in the SAC. But remember, you get to bring in a bound reference. So why wouldn't you bring in this information into this SAC? It should be bound together with all your other information. So with all your other notes, you should include this practice SAC and these questions, and that will guide you through it. So that should hopefully alleviate any stress you're feeling about, well, how am I going to remember how to structure my open-ended task if I'm not given these clear instructions? Well, as long as you include this practice sack in your notes, in your bound reference, you're going to be fine. You'll know exactly what to do. Also remember that these, they're kind of in the rubric as well. If you read through the rubric, you can get a sense of what to do as well. But I really want to stress, bring your practice sacks into the actual sack, and that's really going to help you because you can just follow through the questions. Now, some of these questions are specific to this practice sack. For instance, here is asking you to predict for certain values. Please don't predict for those values in your actual sack. So be a bit discerning here, realize what's specific to this sack and so on. And also, when you do get your actual sack, you're going to have to read it through carefully and figure out what's going on for that specific sack. So don't take this as a broad thing of, well, I'm just going to blindly follow these points here. Because as you can see, there's definitely things that are specific to this one. So just be careful. But by and large, if you follow the structure of how these are set up, you're going to be absolutely fine. Okay, that's a big preface, isn't it? I'm kind of just setting us up for how we should go about our practice sack and how we should think about our actual sack. But I'm just going to pause here, and in the next part, we'll talk about how we're going to actually answer these questions in creating our report. Okay, I'll pause here and I'll see you in the next part.